The Tuesday, February 18th Board of Control meeting. It is now 11:05 a.m. We have Nan Baker. We have Dale Miller.
Here.
We have Trevor McAleer serving as an alternate for Dan Brady. We have Dave Marquardt serving as an alternate for Mike Dever. We have Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
We have Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer. Here. And we have Lenora Lockett. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Can we take a quick minute to review the minutes from February 10th? Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, seeing none, I'll move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Baker. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Okay, contracts and award.
First new item number BC 2020-122, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 47585 to Columbia Dodge, Inc., doing business as Columbiana Chrysler Jeep Dodge, in the amount not to exceed $55,574 for the purchase of two new, never titled 2020 Dodge Grand Caravan four-door van wagons. And it's for use by the Division of Children and Family Services.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. This first item, recommending award to Columbiana Dodge. It's for two new minivans, Dodge minivans for the Children and Family Services. So it was a formal bid done through OPD and went to 12 vendors. We had one bid submission and just looking to make the award. It is under the estimate, which was $58,278.
Okay, are there any questions for Tom? Seeing none, I'll move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Mackler. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you.
Next item number BC 2020-123, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment to an agreement with Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District for technical assistance with various activities in connection with the implementation of soil and water conservation measures in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 940, for the period March 27th, 2018 through March 26, 2020, to extend the time period to March 26, 2021, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $14,000. And for the following: A, for stormwater pollution activities in the amount not to exceed $8,500 associated with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System covered construction activities, and B, for public involvement and public education program activities in the amount not to exceed $5,500.
Good morning, members of the board. Tom Sotak, representing Public Works. As was mentioned, this is an amendment to our existing agreement with the folks over at the Cuyahoga Storm Water Conservation District, and we've had a partnership with these folks for a number of years now. They do an important service for us. They review our sediments, soil erosion control plans, and they also inspect our construction projects, and they do public outreach for us as well. So that's $14,000 for the year.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item number BC 2020-124, Department of Information Technology, recommending an award on requisition 46661 and to enter into a contract with Carasoft Technology Corporation in the amount not to exceed $37,592, and it's for the purchase of 160 Enterprise Select Chat Operations software subscriptions and support services for the period February 18th, 2020 through February 17th, 2021.
Good morning, board members. Dennis Sullivan, Department of IT. This award was bid out 2 times. There was an attempt to get it through in 2019's fiscal. Still, that did not happen. So we are here now at this point. You should have received the responses that were forwarded to the clerk about 9:30 this morning from our security department, specifically Jeremy Emile, in regards to the 2 questions that were asked beforehand. It is a 1-year subscription. In a nutshell, it's been explained to me that this is a shared communications platform for all IT personnel, either directly with the Department of IT or IT with HHS. or all the non-executive agencies' IT personnel, and especially useful as a shared platform for I don't want to say off-season, off-regular hours, off hours.
Okay, Dennis, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Marquardt. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Thank you.
The next item is a two-part item. Item number BC 2020-125, Department of Information Technology. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 47962, which will result in an award recommendation to Dell Marketing LP in the amount not to exceed $5,142.74 for the purchase of 2 Microsoft SQL Server Standard Core licenses for use by the Department of Public Works. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Dennis Sullivan again with the Department of IT. As you're aware, we do have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. This is for, there was a server crash at the Juvenile Justice Center for the HVAC. It's going to be replaced in a virtual environment. This is the licensing to operate that environment for the replacement.
Okay, are there any questions on this item? Councilman Miller.
Does it cost more or less money to operate it on a virtual environment?
I'd have to get you a definitive answer on that, Dale. I'm not aware. I know through our enterprise agreement that's good till June 30th of 21. We have locked in pricing in that regard, but straight up on the different platforms, I'd have to ask someone that might know better than I would.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, I'll move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mackler. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Item approved.
Next item, item number BC 2020-126, Office of Procurement and Diversity, submitting an amendment to a contract with Brinks Incorporated, formerly known as Dunbar Armored Inc., for armed guard and armored truck services for various county departments, and is for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2021, to expand the scope of services by adding 1 pickup location for the Office of Child Support Services, Juvenile Court, located at 9300 Quincy Avenue, effective January 1st, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $18,158.82.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. This is the item that we presented on January 21st, 2020 regarding an alternate procurement. That was a week after being notified or learning that the location had been missed from the contract that extended back to January 19th. As you may recall, in that case, the existing vendor was awarded the same contract that they for the previous contract through an RFP process. As such, they continue providing the services that they were providing before that under the previous contract, and it wasn't discovered until later that the new contract actually had the location missing. At that point, we presented it to the board on January 21st because we knew that it would take some time for the actual contract amendment to be processed. Today, we're here with the actual contract amendment. Also, we're asking for conditional approval because it's determined that we've determined that at the original vendor, Dunbar was bought by Brinks, so their IG registration has expired. So we want to make sure that they are registered under the current name.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve pending proper registration. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Mackler. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved.
Next item, item number BC 2020-127, Sheriff's Department, submitting an agreement with the City of Richmond Heights in the amount not to exceed $60,000 for inmate housing services for the period January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020.
Good morning, Tanisha, presenting on behalf of the Sheriff's Department. We're requesting approval to go into an agreement with the City of Richmond Heights for prisoner board and care services. The contract would run from January 1st, 2020 until December 31st, 2020. There were a few questions I would like to address. I'm not sure if you guys received those responses via email. The reason we are trying to continue to provide this service to the communities is the discussions happened late in 2019 as far as moving inmates out, and we wanted to allow the communities time to do so if need be. Numbers have dropped with the jail population. We decided to go with 1 year versus the 3-year contract that was originally proposed. That way it would allow the communities to find other options for their inmates, as well as for us to reevaluate the situation with the jail population.
Okay, are there any further questions?
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
Plan to get out of the business of providing this kind of service, or is there some reason why we need to continue to do this, other than, as you explained, to provide transition time?
I'm not aware of a need to continue to provide it, but that is a question that I would forward to my higher-ups and get a response for that.
I'm basically asking, do we have a long-term plan as to how we're going to handle this kind of thing?
To my knowledge, there is no long-term plan. It's just the current year contract. And then by the end of this year, we would determine if we would want to continue to provide this service.
If we were not to approve this contract, what alternatives would Richmond Heights have at this time?
I'm not aware of any. That would probably put them between a rock and a hard place in order for them to have their inmates moved and housed somewhere else.
So where were they housing their inmates before they started housing them with us?
I have only been with the county, well, with the Sheriff's Department for a year, and as long as I have been here, they have been with the Cuyahoga County Jail. I can find out where they were prior to me being here and get that answer for you as well.
Mr. Mackler?
Good morning.
Euclid Jail prior to downtown too, but that's still within the county, and I'm not aware prior to that.
I think we started housing Richmond Heights inmates in Woodmere, I think around 2016-ish, somewhere in there. So they were going somewhere prior to 2016. I'm not sure of the location that they were at, Councilman, though. I mean, to the Councilman's point, though, I mean, we send our own inmates out to 3 county jails right now, in essence, to make room to house other people's in. I mean, it just doesn't quite line up and make sense that I mean, I know we're making we're charging $105 per day, but we don't pay that to house our own inmates in other counties. It just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to add up in terms of we're willing to take on these additional inmates, but we're sending out our own inmates out to other counties to house.
That is very true, Councilman. I will say we pay less to house our inmates in the other 3 counties that we utilize for overpopulation, but those numbers are also dropping currently.
And how was the $105.26 number derived for the per diem? Because I know we've seen estimates higher than that per day.
It has increased per the previous agreement, but that was discussed in higher-ups meetings that I was not privy to.
So are you aware, or can you find out, please, if the $105 per day covers our actual cost per inmate per day?
Absolutely.
And then one of the advanced questions that it said would be addressed during the presentation was, is this required to do effective diversion?
That question was forwarded to Chief Carney, and we are hoping to have a response to that as well.
Mr. Mackler, are you comfortable moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think that's a good question. I know Councilman Miller has for months now been asking this question, and the county's in a tough spot, because if we were to say no, we're putting Richmond Heights and others at a disadvantage without much notice. I mean, this is the same issue that we had with the city of Euclid, where we had to extend the closing of Euclid because we couldn't just shut the doors.
Would you like to hold it a week to get more answers? Is that what would you feel better with that, or do you want me to? I just want you to be comfortable. Councilwoman Baker.
So is this a surprise to these cities that we may not renew?
It may have been during the discussions, but as of today, it's not.
But, I mean, as Euclid was going through that process, and it was pretty publicly known that we were going to end that relationship, these other cities, did they think they were different from Euclid, that would not happen to them, or?
I was not a part of the discussions, but I would hope that they were aware and would not have been surprised that we would be looking to eventually possibly end agreements to house those inmates.
Councilman Miller.
I am inclined in the end to vote yes, so as not to put Richmond Heights and the other communities between a rock and a hard place. But I would like to hold it for a week and get more answers as to how this relates to our diversion efforts. How does it relate to our efforts to stay within capacity? What our long-term plan is, so that we get some sense as to where we're going with this.
Sure. Then we're going to hold this item, and maybe for next week, maybe ask some of your team to come.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Those are a lot of the questions that we've been hoping to get answered, but unfortunately, as of this morning, they weren't very clear.
Okay, thank you. We'll hold it then.
Moving on to the next item, item number BC 2020-128, Sheriff's Department. Recommending to terminate an agreement with the City of Cleveland for inmate housing services for various law enforcement agencies operating within the City of Cleveland for the period August 1st, 2018 through November 30th, 2019, and it's effective June 1st, 2019. And B, submitting an agreement with the City of Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for inmate housing services for various law enforcement agencies operating within the City of Cleveland for the period June 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019 for the following agencies. First is the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, second, Cleveland Municipal School District, third, Case Western Reserve University, fourth, University Hospitals, fifth, Cleveland State University, sixth, Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority, 7, Cuyahoga Community College, 8, University Circle Incorporated, and 9, Metro Health System.
Good morning, Tanisha Gakes with the Sheriff's Department again. This is another slightly tricky one with advanced questions. We are requesting to terminate the contract that did in November 30th, 2019 with the Cleveland Police Department for their outside agencies, and requesting to enter a new agreement for the same service with Cleveland Police Department for their outside agencies. It was explained to me by Cleveland Police Department that their procurement process requires them to enter into a new agreement in order to have funds encumbered to cover outstanding invoices dated from June of 2019 through the end of 2019, December 31st. There are talks happening now, which I'm told that they're in the final stages. Drafts are being created for the 2020 agreement as well. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Councilman Miller?
No, this is past history. I'm willing to vote for it. But the same question will arise regarding the 2020 agreements when it comes.
Mr. McAleer, please.
Tanisha, what is the per diem for this?
$99 per day.
And have we started the 2020 negotiations?
They have already completed that, from my understanding, and they are drafting an agreement.
Do you know that new per diem?
I do not. I believe it is higher. There was a holdup during discussions with that piece of information, but I believe they worked it out and it will be higher than the $99 current rate.
And then based off your responses to the advanced questions, the past due invoices, does the city of Cleveland for these 9 entities owe us about $50,000?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Is the city of Cleveland for their own inmates up to date on their bills, or are they past due for their own contract?
With the billing process, they're usually like a month behind, but they are technically up to date.
Okay.
Further question. Is the new contract going to be for 1 year or for more than 1 year?
Good question, but I can find that out for you.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mackler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you. And the next 2 items will be held, I'm assuming. Okay, thank you.
Just for the record, we're holding item number BC 2020-129 and BC 2020-130. Moving on to the next item, item number BC 2020-131, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, recommending an award on requisition 46790 and to enter into a contract with Ohio Guidestone in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for diversion case management services for the period February 1st, 2020 through January 31st, 2022.
Good morning, Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. This item is for a new contract with Ohio Guidestone for our diversion case management program, which previously was called our Court Unruly program. This will cover case management services for our diversion youth only, so they'll be getting an assessment, an individualized treatment plan, as well as any community linkage services. They're seen about twice a month by the staff at Ohio Guidestone, and those staff are also on call 24/7 so that they can also provide any sort of crisis services that may be needed as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Sarah? Seeing none, I'll move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you.
Next item, item number BC 2020-132, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Senior and Adult Services, recommending an award on requisition 46148 and to enter into a master contract with various providers in the total amount not to exceed $350,000 for thermal and chemical bed bug inspection and extermination services. And it's for the period January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2021 for the following providers. A, Speed Exterminating Company in the amount not to exceed $210,000, and B, Terminex International LP, doing business as Terminex Commercial, in the amount not to exceed $140,000.
Good morning. Paul Porter, Health and Human Services on behalf of the Division of Senior and Adult Services. As Andrea mentioned, this is our extermination contract that the Division of Senior and Adult Services and the Division of Children and Family Services both send referrals under. For this contract period, which is 2020 and 2021, we're adding a second vendor for services, and we do plan to have Speed Exterminating Company handle the traditional chemical services, and Terminex is going to handle the thermal remediation, where they use heat to exterminate the bed bugs. There were some prior questions that were asked, and I'm not sure if you were able to review those this morning, but we anticipate similar client volume to what we saw in 2019, where we served 103 clients. The bulk of those were from DSAS, 96 of them, and then 7 clients from DCFS. There's not a waiting list for services under this program. We had some delays both with Terminix's law department switching from having a contract just with them to adding the second vendor. They delayed it a little more than 2 weeks and kind of went back and forth with our law department. And then Speed Exterminating Company had a lengthy delay with switching their insurance coverage. One of the requirements that's standard for contracts working with seniors and children is abuse and molestation insurance coverage. Again, it's standard for us, but that was atypical for an insurance company. Speed had to seek, I think, 6 different estimates and find something that was going to be both cost effective for them and meet our minimum requirements. And eventually they were able to find a policy that did not exclude that coverage rather than having to pay extra for the coverage.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any questions?
I have a question.
Councilman Miller.
Suppose we get into the sometime well into the middle of next year, and we find out that we really need more money in the contract doing the heat exterminating and less money in the one doing the chemical, just as an example.
Sure.
Is this structured so that we can move money around between the two without additional approval, or would it have to come back to us for an amendment?
Because this is structured as a master agreement, we would have the flexibility to make those changes. The amounts that we included, we had to include a dollar amount for each vendor when we're making the initial certification. This is based on what we've observed for the past 5 years that we've been doing the program, or 5.5 years. So I think we're pretty confident in the numbers based on what we've seen so far. If it ends up, the thermal extermination is more costly, but we see fewer of those referrals. So that's why that's kind of a lower dollar amount. The goal is, if you catch a client early enough in the infestation phase, I suppose, chemical treatment's a lot easier. Thermal treatment is needed when a client maybe has let an infestation grow, or if they've tried to self-treat with over-the-counter products, which isn't necessarily as effective as the commercial methods. So we would have that flexibility to move those dollars around, though.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mackler.
Paul, of the seniors that receive the service, is it income-based, or just any senior can receive the service?
Sure. It is income-based, and our program is a little bit more generous income-wise than the City of Cleveland's program. I believe our requirement is up to 200% of the federal poverty level, and the City of Cleveland's requirement might be 150%. And we serve clients throughout the county. So we have a mix of clients in the City of Cleveland and clients outside the City of Cleveland. And it's either 200 or 300% of the federal poverty level. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I will send that to you as a follow-up.
Councilwoman Baker.
Just curious, why would adding a second vendor delay Terminex from, why was that delay?
Sure. I think it was just some of the language that was changed in the contract as a result of adding the second vendor. They were familiar with kind of the boilerplate in the old contract, and it, could have just been the person reviewing it was familiar, because we had amended their prior contract several times. Right. I don't want to speak to any kind of thought process on their part. I just know that when we sent over the initial draft, they had, 2 or 3 times back and forth with our law department with requested revisions.
The Speed Exterminating, is that a new supplier?
Yes, they're a new vendor. Terminix has been with the program since its inception in the middle of 2014. Speed Exterminating is a new vendor. They only do the chemical treatment, not the heat treatment, and their proposal score was higher than Terminix's score. Terminix had done both extermination types for us previous to this.
And even though we're 45 days now into the contract, nothing's been paid, but services have been provided?
Correct. Nothing has been paid, and we have had a handful of referrals that have gone out in that time period, again, because delaying treatment can make the infestation worse. We do have emergency client funds for both DCFS and DSAS that we would be able to pay for these treatments out of. Our preference would be to use those for true client emergencies and have anything that was referred within the past 45 days be invoiced to this contract once it's approved. But if not, we would still find a way to pay for that using emergency client funds.
Do you refund this contract if you did pay from an emergency fund so that they're whole again or not?
Typically what we've done in the past is if it's something that's an emergency treatment or something like that, or we've done treatments for things that are not bed bugs, but treatment has to occur at the same time, we've paid out of the emergency funds and not with this contract, and that's not necessarily replenished, especially if the contract were to be approved with a different start date.
Right, I guess that's the downside of having a late contract is that you're now perhaps forced to use emergency funds that should be used for a real emergency where this could have been used had it been done in time.
Absolutely, understood.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, I will move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you.
To exemptions, item number BC 2020-133, Department of Public Works, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 46919, which will result in an award recommendation on state contract to Great Lakes Petroleum in the amount not to exceed $1,236,000 for the purchase of fuel for various county facilities for the period April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2022.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. We're looking to enter into a 2-year contract with Great Lakes Petroleum. This is the exemption part of the approval process. The actual contract will go to County Council. The reason for the exemption, we're looking to do this purchase off of the State of Ohio contract. State of Ohio, they conducted a bid process during 2018. We're looking to piggyback off that state contract. Great Lakes Petroleum is the lowest bidder in Northeast Ohio. Typically, there's other vendors that do bid in the State of Ohio, but in this region, Great Lakes Petroleum holds the lowest pricing matrix for us. It's a 2-year contract, roughly about $618,000 a year. There's multiple locations. Harvard, which is our new main hub, that's where most of this is going to go for our sanitary, road and bridge, as well as our fleet services. We also have tanks out at the airport, and then all of our most of our county buildings have generators that also utilize fuel for the generators.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you.
Next item, item number BC 2020-134, Sheriff's Department, recommending an alternative procurement process on requisition 47971, which will result in an award recommendation and issuance of a purchase order to Personnel Research and Development Corp., doing business as Prodco, in the amount not to exceed $49,000 for pre-hire psychological assessments for protective service officers. And it's for the period February 18th, 2020 through December 31st, 2020.
Good morning, Tanisha with the Sheriff's Department. We're requesting approval for an alternative procurement for Pradco for psychological evaluations for the protective services officers. This item was actually a RFP, third quarter of 2019. The selected vendor lacked experience, so we were inclined to go back out to bid, which there was an informal bid process done January 8th through January 10th, and the same vendor lacking experience would have won that bid as well. So we're requesting an alternative procurement to go with Pradco, who actually has more experience with law enforcement, including protective service officers for psychological evaluation services.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Mackler.
Not necessarily to this contract, but there was some discussion in the last year and a half or so about providing these same assessments or similar assessments to corrections officers. Where are we with that process, and is that something that this vendor could provide, and have we had that discussion?
At this time, that is a part of the RFP process that was included in the 3-year RFP process. Unfortunately, the vendor that we were originally working with during 2019 was unable to take the load of protective services, correctional officers, and deputies. So we were able to amend that contract to continue to provide the service to deputies. Pradco could only provide the service to protective service officers at this time, so that's why we split it and are asking for approval to work with Pradco, and then the correctional officers, we're hoping to include that in the RFP that should be coming forth very soon.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, so is the plan right now then not to include corrections officers until January of 2021?
That is correct. Maybe sooner if we are able to, there is a out clause with this contract with Pradco as well, but yes, that is the plan at this moment for 2021.
Do we know if there is a vendor out there that can handle the volume of including our 700 or so?
At this time, with the last two bidding processes to take place, it's not looking like it, but we hope to have something by the end of 2020 or someone.
We could also break it up though, right?
Yes, and have a third vendor as well.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mackler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Thanks.
Next item, item number BC 2020-135, Sheriff's Department, requesting approval to amend Board Approval Number BC 2019-766, dated October 21st, 2019, which amended Board Approval Number BC 2019-564, dated July 29th, 2019, which approved an alternative procurement process and resulted in award recommendations to various providers, payable by department orders, in the total amount not to exceed $150,000 for various equipment repairs in the jail facilities, and it's for the period July 29, 2019 through December 31st, 2020, to allow for payment by purchase orders. Now, the department is requesting to rescind awards to multiple providers in the total amount not to exceed $17,000 for the following providers: F, Astral Supply in the amount of $10,000, and G, Don Kim Inc. in the amount of $7,000.
Tanisha Gakes with the Sheriff's Department. We're requesting to rescind the rewards to Astro and Don Kim for lack or failure to provide insurance documentation in order to reward those vendors.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this item? Sure. Councilwoman Baker.
I understand, but we're rescinding these awards, so they did not provide the services.
They have not provided the services, and they were unable to provide us the insurance documentation.
Any pushback from them, do you think?
No, not that I've heard of.
No? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Well, Mr. Marquardt, we'll give him the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Next
Thank
item.
you.
Thanks.
Moving on to the consent agenda, item numbers BC 2020-136 through BC 2020-139.
If you take a minute here, we'll go through this and let me know if you have any questions.
I would just like to mention just one little note for item number BC 2020-136. The department did respond, but I couldn't open up the email. I'll provide that answer to you after the meeting once I get that done.
Mr. Mackler, do you have any questions? No? Okay, sorry. Okay, I will make a motion then to approve today's consent agenda items as noted. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Items approved. Thank you.
We're moving on to other business. We do have an additional item, and it's from the Department of Human Resources. It's a two-part item. A, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a purchase order to State of Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation in the amount not to exceed $118,945. And this is for the annual true up. And B, recommending the award and purchase order payment.
Hollywood's Department of Human Resources. So the annual true-up is invoiced by Bureau of Workers' Compensation. It's based on the premium payments made during the previous year, so in this case, 2019. Employers in the state of Ohio are charged premium payments based on an estimate calculated by the Bureau, and then at the end of the year, the true-up is calculated, and employers who owe additional premium are invoiced, and that's the invoices for you before you today. We are in an early discount program with the BWC, and so there is some urgency to process this payment. We do realize some very significant discounts if we engage and pay in this early payment program, and so there is some urgency to process this payment and get it through so we can maintain those discounts.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to first make a motion to agenda today's items to add this. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, we have now added this to the agenda. Are there any questions for this item?
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
So, who actually owes the $118,945?
The county, when you say who owes it, the county owes it. So we have two policies. One is for our regular full-time employee population. The other is for temporary employees, volunteers, and I think Board of Elections.
I got the impression there were various employers that were acting on behalf of. Is that not right?
It is the county. It's just the county.
It's just our own.
Correct.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, any further? Mr. Mackler.
Holly, I understand the need to pay it and make sure we're not late, but why couldn't this make the printed agenda? We didn't get the invoice on Friday, did we? Or how come it had to be a walk-on?
Sure. So HR received the invoices on February 4th and February 7th, and we began the process for payment in the new system immediately. There were some issues in the new system in order to get the Bureau did not come over in the go live as an existing vendor, and there were some significant delays in getting them added to the system as a vendor. And as a result, it took a good week or more just to get them set up so we could process it to get it onto the agenda. And as a result, everything started to go through on Friday, which did not allow for it to get on the agenda today.
Any further questions?
Yes.
Councilman Miller, please.
I'll defer.
So this is money that we definitely owe. There's no dispute. And if we don't pay it, we will be penalized.
Correct. So yeah, there's no dispute. It is money that is owed. If we don't pay it, we would lose a potential $2 million in discounts as a result of participating in that early discount program. So thus the urgency to maintain that payment timely.
Thanks for clarifying.
Councilman Miller, please.
Does the fact that we owe an additional $118,945 reflect that our claims experience for 2019 was worse than anticipated?
No, this is purely premiums for bodies that are covered for the workers' comp.
So it relates more to the number of employees than their experience. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Mackler.
Holly, when is the payment due for us not to lose this $2 million discount?
The payment is due today.
Wow. Move approval.
It's a wire transfer. Is that how we pay?
We will get a check, which we will physically walk over to their offices. So we've been trying to walk through every step of the way to make sure we can maintain that. But the goal is as soon as everything's processed here, we get a live check and we walk it to the Bureau's office.
Okay, which is not our normal practice, but anyways,
Correct.
I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item, or that's it?
There's no other business at this time.
Okay, no comments either?
No public comment.
Okay, well then I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Said he, this was